So I want you guys to take a look. So this is a Taurus script. Okay. Let me just go. Actually, let me go take a step back. So Taurus is an open source tool. Okay, so anybody can go to gettaurus.org to download and start using it. It's an open source tool for test development and execution. So it can test, it can execute existing open source tools like JMeter, Selenium, Gatling, Locust, you name it. All of those you can use Taurus to execute. What is great about Taurus is that it's also a YAML-based domain-specific language, so DSL, right? So it's designed to do load testing. And you can see this is a YAML, very human-readable way of writing the test itself. And I'll show you in a second that you can combine multiple YAML files and launch them together. And this is important, especially in performance testing, because sometimes you want to have multiple scenarios happening at the same time. And in JMeter, then you have to create different thread groups and then put them all in the same file. It gets very complicated. But in Taurus, all you have to do is just specify 2 separate files, and then you can launch them together. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this real quick. So you will see for Taurus, the first section is the execution. So basically, you specify the concurrency, so how many concurrent users you want. You specify the duration, 5 minutes. The ramp up is 30 seconds. So that means from 0 to 30 seconds, I want to ramp up from 1 to 30 users. And then here are the URLs or the endpoints that I wanted to hit. Okay, that's it. It's that simple. You don't need to open anything. You don't need to create anything. I don't even understand what JMeter is. I'm just literally putting in the criteria I have in my head for my test, and I write it down. Okay, and I can also set a criteria. I want to say, for example, in here, the average the average response time. I want it, if it's any time is greater than 2 seconds and it lasts for more than 10 seconds, I want to stop the test altogether, just fail it. All right. So, and this later on, again, once you integrate with Jenkins, it will actually fail the build. So what that means is that if something that I think is catastrophically, or cause catastrophes in my testing, I wanted to fail the build itself. And this, having 2 separate files, I can now actually go into my terminal. All I have to do is still say BCT, Taurus demo YAML, criteria YAML, and hit enter. And as you can see, as you start building, so let me go back here. First of all, it gives you a very simplistic but very rich information about the test itself. So you see there is a graphic presentation of how it's hitting the 2 endpoints that I have right here, the homepage and the reserve, and then see if there's any hits per second and the average response time. If that's all you need, great. This is actually a great feature that most of engineers are going to be completely wow, that's because everything is right in their face, and they don't have to dig any deeper. But if you do want to dig deeper, so what I did in my original YAML file is that I say reporting go to BlazeMeter, and what happened is that it actually creates a BlazeMeter report. So on our website, again, all these are free, by the way. So once you download Taurus, you will have all of this. And you can actually see the reporting on here with the load hits per second and response time. And as you can see, it's this is all in real time. Okay, so everything is going in the real time, and allows you to share this report with whomever that is in your either in your team or in cross-functional team that is you think it's should be looking at this, and you can monitor this together. Let me just quickly go through some of these reports that you can see. So, for example, you can go to the timeline report. You can basically map the response time, error rates, hits per second, latency. All of these key KPIs that you wanted to track will be also shown in a single graph. If you want to see specific stats on your requests or on your labels, you can see that right here. So you can see how many samples has been sent, the 90% percentile response time, and then also the 99% error percentage and all this right here. And you can download this as a CSV. There's engine health. I'm currently using my own computer to all these are local, by the way. I'm not using anything online. And this is actually tracking the CPU and the memory usage of my computer. So if it goes beyond a certain percentage, then I know that, okay, maybe I need to go to the web or go to the cloud to actually launch this, because my computer is just not powerful enough to do all this. And then, obviously there's errors, and any kind of errors you can go check. Obviously this is not good with all these error rates, so I have to go back and check to see what's going on in the back end there. Okay, so so that's it. This is Taurus. All right. So again, you can go through, just go to gettaurus.org and download the Taurus app itself. It's very, very quick. If you have a Mac, there's a homebrew option to do that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Move on to the next thing. Okay. So now, now that you're a developer and you created you created this test, the next thing you want to do is to automate, right? You want to be able to shift your code as well as your tests to GitHub, as basically a tool like Taurus can enable you to build this performance test quickly, and also allows you to check it in along with your code as part of your artifact, right? So you basically package it all together and check it into GitHub. And you can now version control this. You can use the CI tools to actually launch these tests as part of your criteria of moving past the build stage, right? So I'm going to go back to. So I already have a GitHub setup, right? So this is my GitHub, just a couple of files. Again, this could be your team, repository of your tests, or you can just submit the changes here. Obviously, you can go to GitHub through API and just push your code in. Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and change it right here. So when I click and I change this to 50, I'm just going to launch this real quick. So when I click commit changes, as most of you guys probably know, that this I already set up a connection between my GitHub to my Jenkins, and so once I commit the change, let's see. Commit the change. Let's see. Okay, let's change. For some reason it didn't work, but I'm going to go ahead and launch this real quick. Basically, I want to show you guys. Oh, I need to log in. That's why. Yes. So once I log in, you see that this actual from the GitHub, it actually launched a build in here, and I can go in and look at the console output of this Git, and you can see that it graphed the artifacts from GitHub and launch the test, launch the Taurus test directly on here. Now, what I did actually, I didn't launch it in my in the server, the Jenkins server. I actually launched it on the web, because if I come back to the configurations, I'm going to walk you guys through. So I got a GitHub project set up right here, grab the repository, and over here on the again, same thing. I get BZT, Taurus demo, criteria demo. I tell them to don't show the actual GUI of the Taurus display. But I said -cloud, meaning I want to actually go to the cloud, go to BlazeMeter, and actually launch this in BlazeMeter. And you see that I gave it an API key so that I know which account to use. But if you look at this right here, I actually have this Taurus Cloud test that's launching right now. That now I've scaled instead of I saw that earlier, even with 30 users, it was killing my machine. So I wanted to, when I scale up to 50, I want to use a cloud machine, and this is how I can do that here. And again, you can share this particular report with anybody on your team, and they can see it as they work alongside. Okay. Let's see. If I go back to this side right here, you can see that setting up is fairly straightforward. If you already have a Jenkins GitHub setup, that's actually already been done for you, then that's great. All you have to do is just put in this VCT command line, and you're all good to go. We also, just FYI, I'm not going to show it here, but we also have a Blaze Meter step where you can actually pick and choose your existing test that you already created in Blaze Meter and launch it directly as well. Okay, but that's something that's kind of beyond the topic of today, so I won't go into. Okay. Now let me go back to here. I hope I'm not going too fast, but again, I'll try to answer questions more at the end. So I'm going to let the test continue running, but this is how the integration part or the automation part would work. And this is actually very important because I want to emphasize that for a lot of my customers, most of them, they would actually say that automations can catch, once you actually create these tests and put it into your CI, automations can catch somewhere between 80 to 85% of their bugs just from like first pass. Okay, and it's staggering to think that why people wouldn't do this, because this is really the best ways to reduce the amount of headaches and heartaches towards the end of your pre-production test, because you can catch this way sooner, way early. Okay. All right. So now that you got these tests set up to run automatically, you are pretty much set for your first milestone. Okay. But now as you start expanding to other teams, as you are doing regression for your build, you inevitably involve other teams or outside of your team, particularly to that maybe building other components of the product, or they could be the one that manage the infrastructures, or they manage the whole system regression. There's different teams for that, and especially for larger organizations that I work with, these become even more important because the products are larger. There's more moving parts. So at the end, you want to be able to seamlessly collaborate with each other. Okay, so for example, like an infrastructure engineer may need to look at the test that a dev engineer actually built, or vice versa, right? So they want to be able to see, oh, you built this, and I don't need to rerun the view. I can just take your test and then move into the regression or move into this part of my testing cycle, so that I can use that as well. Or I just need to move it in and then change a few parameters and start using it. So collaboration is very important. Okay, so like I was saying before, you want to share the test and then ask it across functional teams. Again, the report has to be easy to access. Okay, you don't want to need to download some data and put on an Excel sheet and then email it, and it's not easy to pass around. You definitely want to have a report that's online, that's easy to share, and you can control who you share it to. There's also roles and permissions on organizations and projects, right? So sometimes you may want to have someone have access to your report, but they can't run any tests, because otherwise they might screw up your build environment, right? So you want to make sure that they have access, but limited access. And then there's in the era of chatbots and webhooks, you want to have some sort of webhooks that allow you to prompt and notify users when a test starts, ends, or particularly when a test fails, right? Maybe you don't care when the test runs because you're going to run this continuously. But if a particular test fails, especially early on in the development stage, you want to know about it. And email is not always the best way anymore, and you want to have the webhooks to do that. So I'm going to show you this real quick. Oops, let's see. So I'm going to go back here. So again, this is just, it's continuing to run. So I'm going to move into a different workspace here. So this is BlazeMeter. Again, I'm not going into how to run tests in BlazeMeter. There you can request a demo, and then we're more than happy to show you that. What I want to show you are the particular features that we developed for the collaboration, for enterprise and small team collaboration that I mentioned earlier. So, for example, there are different workspaces that I can create. So, under the same account, I can have different workspaces. And the way that workspaces work, or the way that they should work, is that it allows you to group a group of people together that you can control who belongs to this particular workspace. So in your case, it could be the particular product that you're working on, right? So for example, like have e-commerce product, have web application product, or whatnot. And under that workspace, you can have multiple projects, right? So if I look at my projects, this is the e-commerce app. So I have a project called Checkout. I have a project called Add to Cart. So it can be different subcomponents of your particular product that your team is working on, or maybe the sub teams that work on those products. Again, how it divides up, it's really up to you, but you have this option of breaking your entire account into multiple organizations or multiple workspaces, and then under that you have multiple projects. Okay, and I can say, for example, add a new project. So earlier, that was for my project, I was doing a reserve. So I'll call it, this is the reserve project. And here now I can actually create a new test, right? So how do I create a new test? I can go, just click create new test here. And since previously I have the Taurus test, I just click Taurus. So I can now directly upload this Taurus in here. So again, you have your automation that's done through GitHub and Jenkins. But now that you're done with those testing and you know this works, you wanted to be able to upload it here to share with the rest of the world. So you can do it right here. So I click on that and say, okay, I'm going to go in and share this particular test that I have here for this demo. Great. And I can call this the reserve test. Save. Voila. So you can see exactly what the test looks like on the right-hand side. And now I can just click run and run this test. Now, let's say that I am an infrastructure engineer. I want to come in. I want to move this test into my regression testing, right? So what I do? Easy. I make a copy of it. I would say move this test to regression. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. Now let's move into regression test. Okay. Now I'm going to change this to say this is regression test. Save. And that's it. So if once I go into the project regression, now I see there are different tests in here. I guess I didn't save this part right here. Let me change this again. Regression. Save. There you go. And if I go into the project itself, I can see all these different tests that can be run. Now, the great thing about BlazeMeter is that not only you can run Taurus tests, you can also run other kinds of tests like JMeter. Right. So over here, I can go into JMeter. This is a particular JMeter test, and and I run this test alongside. I can set up another Jenkins build that will run all of these tests together, and it wouldn't matter which test that you select. Because as far as you can tell, you're just saying that test name dot start, and BlazeMeter will figure out for you if it's JMeter test, Taurus test, Gatling test, whatever, and they will run all of it for you. And this is potentially be really easy if you, let's say that you want to expand this into multiple locations, and you want to make sure, to expand this to something even bigger. You can click multi-location, and now I just need to, there's, US West, US East, Europe, whatever that you want, you can select how many users you want. And now from a simple unit test or small test, now you can expand it to a large regression-like test that involves many more users, many more locations, and things like that. Okay, so that's the beauty of having a SaaS product that really focus on being able to expand and kind of cloudify your existing tests. So one thing that I want to show, let me go back real quick. Project question. Let's say that I want to go to this added card, and I'm just going to launch. Again, this I can adjust this more if I wanted to. I can add more users here, as far as you can tell. And let's just say for now, let's do 20, and I'll run this test. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to open Slack. So I want to show you. We have a webhook that's set up. That when I actually run this test, it will send up a webhook. Save it. Just going to run this test real quick to show you the webhooks. Boom, right there. So it tells you that I have a new test that's running, give you the actual report link right there, and you can click on the reports. Okay. And I just noticed that I'm running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to speed up the last part of this. So we talk a little bit about collaboration, why it's important. But I also wanted to show this very last point. You want to show results, okay? And the idea is that you want to keep track of all these APIs, like a test coverage or a number of pass-fail builds, and you create dashboard to show that. It's important because that you want to be able to show the impact to your team and to see how it actually affect your development cycles. Unfortunately, I can't show you a lot of the amazing dashboard that I've seen in my customers, for NDR reasons. But I assure you that many of them agree that showing the result is the key to getting more engineer on board of this movement. Okay, because first, once you identified what KPIs are important, right? So you want to know, okay, is that is it test coverage? Is it the number of build fails? Is it how fast you can ship? You can decide what the KPIs are, and then you establish a baseline, right? It's 50% coverage enough? Is it 80% coverage enough? Right? Can I reduce only to like 10% build fails? Right? I think you would establish that baseline, and then now you can keep track. You can monitor and keep track of the changes in the dashboard. And if it makes it easier, you can also use BlazeSpeeder API to extract the data from us and then present it in those dashboards. Okay, and once you gather all this information over time, you can really see if there are any gaps or any issues that you see as a trending issue through tracking this. And lastly, make sure all these results are visible to everyone. Okay, so display these results publicly, because displaying those publicly can create a transparency, and then each team can now see exactly where the gaps are in the test coverage. So, for example, I have customers that actually have large monitors in the hallways, and or in the back of their cubicle rooms, and you can see exactly how it's trending. Or this particular build is failing, and as soon as that happens and it shows on the dashboard, it's all hands on deck and fix it right away instead of waiting until your pre-production or waiting for regression to happen. So all of these are important, especially for teams. If you need to kind of if people raise question about how effective this is what can silence all those questions. Okay. Now, I think that's it. I think that will leave us about 10-15 minutes for more questions. So I'm gonna take a look at the questions right now. Let's see. I'm not sure I'm seeing a lot of the questions. Let's see. Claire, are you able to see the questions?
Hi, sorry, yes, I can. Just one moment. Okay, so the first question we have is from Joe, and he says, if development didn't write unit tests before, why will they start writing them now?
That's a very good question. So in a way, I agree. It is somewhat of a culture change, but I wouldn't face it that way, because at the end of the day, most developers take pride in their work, and they do want to ship better code. And adding unit tests, it's just a good practice to make sure that their code are stable and they're not breaking anything, and also there's good quality code. So it does take a little bit of a culture change within the organization to say, from now on we want to ship quality code before going into pre-production. And that's something you have to work together with the entire team. But ultimately, especially for the more senior engineers, they all that I work with, that is, they all agree. There's part of that is just good practice, and part of that is just taking pride in your work. Right. So I hope that answers questions.
Okay, so there's another question here from Daniel. He's saying, how do we incorporate responsive web layouts into our automated testing methodology? He says that his system displays differently depending on the viewport.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. Could you repeat that again?
He says, how do we incorporate responsive web layouts into our automated testing methodology? He says his system displays differently.
I see. So this is more of a JMeter/Selenium question. I might have to maybe converse you a little bit more to understand exactly what you mean. But in general, if you're saying that you're trying to test out the web layouts, to see the different response times, for say from first byte load to for entire DOM or something like that. That you probably use Selenium to do that, and again, without really understanding your specific scenario, it's hard for me to give you suggestions. So I would recommend you to reach out to us and send us those questions, and I'm sure we can get back to you on that. Okay.
Okay, our next question is from Tom, and he's saying, does Taurus support the parameterization of YAML parameters so that they can be passed in on the command line?
Absolutely, absolutely. The short answer is yes, and there's there are user manuals and documentation that can show you how to do that. But essentially, yeah, you can create parameters inside YAMLs and be able to pass in through either directly from the command line or actually through a different file like a CSV file.
Okay, our next question is, do we need to install any Jenkins plugins to integrate with Taurus? And how can we check how can we check Blaze meter test reports in Jenkins?
Oh, excellent. So let me go back to that real quick. Okay. So let me bring this back to you. So this is a Jenkins build that I created. You can see here, there is no plugin that you need, because again, as long as you install Taurus in the Jenkins server, you can just call BZT and it will launch directly. And yes, if I actually go back to the build that I had earlier, the test ended. There you go. I'm going to quit this real quick. We go to output, so it does give you that report directly to Blaze Meter. So if you click on that, then it will take you to the Blaze Meter report that I showed you earlier, right here. Okay.
We have another question here from Daniel. He's saying, when incorporating tests as part of CI, how do we track which the Blaze Meter reports ties back to which build? So if someone runs a new build, do the old reports get dropped?
No, so that is an excellent question. So when you have a new build, you basically just run the same test over again. And if you look at this right here, if I go back to the test that I ran, let me show you. So the Taurus cloud test is test that I ran earlier, so this is the exact test. But if I click on the test itself, I can see the history of all the tests that I ran with the same name or with the same they're different builds, but basically you continue to use the same test, and now you can actually see the trending report of all of those builds as well. So see, especially let's say that you added a feature, then you reduce the amount of response time for a certain page. You want to actually see it, and this will be the one that you can keep track and actually prove that that particular feature allows you to reduce that certain amount of response time or stuff like that, or vice versa. If it actually went up, then you know something's wrong. You got to go back and fix it.
Okay, our next question is by Art, asking how can you best track, in brackets, version control, the tests versus the code tested? Are there advanced analytics to view code change versus test failure trends?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I understand particularly what you're looking for, but if you're saying that you just wanted to track a so when you ship your test along with your code, again on GitHub you can have a very specific repository to hold all of that for a particular project or a particular product, and you have the version controls through there. And once you launch through Jenkins, again you can be able to track all the different changes of your test through here. I don't know what else. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry, I might have just missed the point.
Sure. It's how do you best track the tests, like in brackets, version control, the tests versus the code tested? And then continues to ask, are there advanced analytics to view the code change versus test failure trends?
I see. Yeah, I don't think there's a good question. Good answer for that. I can go back and take a look at some the use cases that I work with, but I think in general, you package those just like any other artifacts that you send along with your code, right? So there may be like a Java file that you ship. So in the same way, you would just ship the Taurus file along with that as well. That's the most common use case that I've seen, but maybe there are better ways to do that. I'm not sure.
Okay. We have another question. The same test runs, in brackets, different days, different hours, and individual reports are created in BlazeMeter. How do we aggregate all these individual reports and see timeline results without just comparing the reports?
I see. Good question. It is a feature that I I actually entered into for our product. So basically, one way you can do that, and it's unfortunately it's not something that it's quickly done or on our UI, but basically you can for each test that we run, you will get a for each test you run, especially for JMeter test or Taurus test, you get a JTL file where you have basically all the information, right? All the response time, all the individual information for that test can be downloaded directly. Or, like I mentioned earlier, every single thing that we measure, you can use a BlazeMeter API to extract that information. So what I have seen some of our customers do is actually they would use those APIs or they would use those JTL files to extract the information that they want and build their own dashboard or build their own tracking mechanism. Again, I agree. I think there actually should be kind of like a feature on our on BlazeMeter to actually keep track of all that for you and be able to spin out a very nice PDF that you can present to your manager or whatnot. But for the time being, there is a workaround. It just takes a little bit more work on your part.
Okay, and I think this is going to be our second from last question because we're nearly out of time.
Okay.
How do you install BlazeMeter on CI environments? Are there any other ways to run Taurus without installing BlazeMeter?
No. So you have to install BCT. That's the BCT. BCT is not blaze meter.
Oh,
BCT
sorry,
is
I misread
Taurus.
it. I apologize. BCT.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. The question was actually, how do you install BCT on CI environments? Any other way to run Taurus without installing BCT?
Right. So the short answer is that BCT literally is Taurus. So you have to install that into your Jenkins server, and it's again, it's very simple way of installing. There's instructions on getTaurus.org that it will tell you exactly how to do so. And when I installed it for my Jenkins server, it took me 20 minutes. Like, it won't take that long.
Okay, and as I said, we're almost out of time, so this will have to be the last question for now. But feel free to reach out to us afterwards if you have any pressing questions that weren't answered. And our last question today is: do you have any suggestions regarding open source tools for the automation of functional and performance tests on desktop applications?
So there is actually a really nice blog post. Maybe Claire, you can send it to this gentleman or lady here. Yes. About how to use the open source tools for desktop applications, and I think if I remember correctly, it's you can use JMeter plus Selenium. That would be a good combination for that. But the blog post goes into detail of like kind of showing you what are the best way to go about doing so. So go ahead and check that out.
I will send the link afterwards.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's all we have time for today. But I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it informative. As we mentioned before, there will be a short survey at the end, so please, just take a couple of seconds to fill it out. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what you'd like to learn more about going forward. And thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.